This is take two. We just had a big audio problem with take one of episode 6 for the Count On It podcast. I got my eyes on the chat. Let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. I had to do a system reset. Hopefully, we are good to go this time. Assuming we are, tonight's title is Can You Defend Your Dogma? Featuring Darante Lamar. And I'm going to reach out to this man. I just came across his channel this past week, and I really like what he's doing. He's an ex-pastor, and he's challenging Christians. He used to be a pastor in a Christian church. He had a change of faith, if you will. And he's made the transition all the way to an atheist. You know me, I'm not an atheist. I do think there's a creator or creators or something greater than us that did bring this world into existence. And, science tries to explain it through the Big Bang. That Big Bang to me would have had to have come from something supernatural. Perhaps I'm wrong, but that's just what I think based on the evidence in my life. I do think there are signs of a spiritual force that if you're looking, it can guide you and answer questions you might be pondering. Are you on the right path? Are you doing the right things? Are you mistaken? But I don't think any of that has to do with religion or dogma. And of course, I've talked about these topics many a times over the going on 12 years that I've been here. That said, in the 12 years I've been here, and actually for all of my life, I don't think I've ever heard a person articulate the thoughts of why religion is problematic, as well as this gentleman whose channel I've come across this week, Darante Lamar. And just before I went live, I saw that he just posted a status update for his channel that he just had his biggest week ever. So that's probably why I came across his channel this past week. His videos are starting to get out there. He's having one of those breakthrough moments on YouTube. And I hope to see his channel grow to be a lot bigger. And I hope that he challenges a lot of religious people in their thinking. Another thing that he inspired me on is the way he is doing his content. He's an author and a presenter on YouTube. And yours truly is also an author and a presenter on YouTube. I can tell what he is doing. He is working on books constantly, and he is reading his new written material as presentations, and he's probably using it to see what sticks with his audience, what resonates the most, what gets the biggest response, and I'm guessing that's a way of essentially testing what belongs in his finished written works. I'm thinking I need to start doing the same thing. Imagine if I compiled all my posts just into books periodically, annually, biannually. Again, I could be publishing a lot of material too. And one other thing he's doing that's obvious is he's speaking into a camera with a script that he's written that will become his published work, I imagine. And he has a nice little backdrop. It looks like he's doing some kind of green screen type of background or one of these NVIDIA cards that you can now use with OBS to make, without even a green screen, just a nice digital background. It adds a little eye candy for the people who need that. To me, it's always just been about the content, but a lot of people need that eye candy as well. I had somebody reach out to me and say, Zach, you need a way better backdrop for where you present. It just doesn't look good. It's like, yeah, I guess. I just thought the content itself would be good enough that I don't have to redesign my office for the appeal. But people are into that, right? People do judge books by their covers. Anyhow, this guy is doing it right. He is doing it right, and he's adding a little editing to his videos to clean up his speech and just make it sound real clean and precise. And plus, he has a really great speaking voice, and that's something he's blessed with. Not all of us get as nice of a voice as this man has, and you can tell he used to be a pastor with that speaking voice. But yeah, the script and the editing makes him sound really good, because he does do live streams as well. And if you listen to his live streams, it doesn't sound nearly as impressive. He has a lot of likes, like a lot of us Americans use the word like way too much. Like. He does that too in his live streams. But if you watch his presented videos, again, with the nice backdrop and the editing, there's no likes. It's just very well spoken and articulated ideas that everyone should ponder. And I do see the people in his comments, the Christians there, saying, do not listen to this man. This man is dangerous. You're going to burn in hell if you listen to this man. Again, that's the problem with religion, right? So many people are fully invested because of the consequences from what they were taught as youngins. Almost all of us got the religion at a young age, and we were taught that if we don't believe, there will be eternal consequences. Do you want to live in the eternal heaven with Jesus, or do you want to burn in hell with Satan? And that's a very scary thought for a child. And again, is that really how Creator would operate? If you don't believe what was written in a book by men, you're going to be eternally punished. Again, that's the other thing too about so many people with their dogma. They're not really invested for righteous reasons. They're invested because of fear. They're invested because of self-gain. They're invested because they want the eternal reward. To me, I just want to do the right thing because the right thing feels right. Because I know the right thing benefits the world. Because helping other people is good for not only yourself and the way you feel about yourself, but definitely for the person who needed the help that you provided. Again, the golden rule is taught in all spirituality. You don't need dogma with it. You don't need an eternal afterlife as some kind of reward. Religion is really very shallow, especially Christianity, which is a door-to-door salesman type of religion. And it truly is. That's not some knock on it. That's just a fact. That's part of the reason it's so widespread, is because there's so many door-to-door salesmen and missionaries who can't even agree with the other sects of Christianity because the book is so unclear. But rather than go on, I want to play this gentleman's video, Darante Lamar. In the description of my video, I have pinned the link to his channel right at the very top if you like what you hear. And based on what you guys are saying in the chat, I might end up playing more than one of his videos. But I just came across this video and I really liked it, so it's the one I want to share with you. The title is perfect. It's called The Psychology of Christian Dishonesty: Why Truth Doesn't Matter. He's not saying truth doesn't matter. He's saying why truth doesn't matter to Christians. And again, from 12 years of doing what I do, I can't tell you how many times a comment was left by a Christian: Zach, your work doesn't mean anything because you don't believe in Jesus, because you're not washed in the blood of Jesus. Your message means nothing. The only thing that matters is belief in Jesus. If you don't believe in Jesus, you're wasting your time. And to me, I always shake my head. I think this whole Jesus thing, it's got you stuck. You're waiting for a savior rather than using your God-given power to act and make change in the world that is so desperately needed. You're putting all your faith in what authorities told you. Authorities who've wanted to control you from the cradle to the grave, and they are. So, again, I want to get into this man's video, Darante Lamar. The link is in the description of my video. I'm going to reach out to him, too, and see if he'd like to come on, because I'd actually like to have a conversation about what made him jump all the way into atheism and why he has gone from being so certain in a pastor that there is a God and Christianity is the way, to all the way of totally disbelieving in any kind of spiritual force. Yeah, I think that could be an interesting conversation. But that point aside, this man has a way with words. The scripts that he's writing are excellent, very well thought out, great vocabulary, great execution. He's inspiring me to do better. So without further ado, here he is, Darante Lamar, The Psychology of Christian Dishonesty: Why Truth Doesn't Matter. And he's also put out a couple, he's publishing a lot of videos. He's putting out a lot of content. I'm tempted to play a couple more of these tonight. I have seen this one, but he's got some up that I haven't seen that have very intriguing titles to me. So anyway, let's start right here and we'll see what you guys think. I might be inclined to pause here and there and interject, or maybe not. Here we go.
If it were true, they would have found a way to prove it. But because it's not, they've only found ways to protect it. Behind the pulpits, behind the prayers, behind the polished testimonies and the trembling altar calls, there's a secret they dare not say out loud. They're not defending truth. They're defending a shelter built out of slogans, a lifeboat patched together with fear, a script recited out of survival, not discovery. Christianity today, for far too many, is not a home for seekers. It's a fortress for the frightened. And the moment you ask an honest question, the moment you dare to climb the walls they built around themselves, you become the enemy. Not because you hate truth, but because you remind them that they stopped looking for it a long time ago. Christianity, once allegedly born from a hunger for the sacred, has calcified into a fortress of fear, where identity is defended at the expense of truth and submission is demanded at the expense of humanity. Christian belief for many is no longer about the pursuit of truth, it's about the preservation of identity and group survival. Truth seeking has been replaced by identity protective cognition, which is protecting the group, not exploring the reality. Evangelism has degenerated from curiosity-driven outreach into coercive submission enforcement, which is seeking conformity, not understanding. And investigation has been abandoned because real investigation risks social, psychological, and existential collapse. The canopy would tear. Common Christian claims are maintained through performance and protection, not through honest evaluation. The deeper dishonesty is not in believing incredible claims, but in pretending those claims have been meaningfully tested when they haven't. So let's talk about Christianity as group identity, not truth inquiry.
All right, he does have a monetized channel. There will be some ad breaks like this. I'll skip through them without maybe the sound. Here we go.
From the pulpit to the people, how belief became banner, not inquiry. I spent years standing behind pulpits, big stages, loud choirs, packed out rooms with hands lifted high. And I can tell you firsthand, most people in those pews weren't searching for truth. They were holding on for dear life to a world that made them feel safe, seen, and significant. In those charismatic megachurch spaces, especially urban ones where systemic injustice is real and hope feels scarce, faith becomes a survival strategy. You're not believing because it makes sense. You're believing because you need something to make sense. You're believing because your community, your family, even your personal value is hooked to that belief. And once survival is tied to the belief, investigation becomes a threat. You're not encouraged to ask, is this true? You're trained to chant, it must be true, or we're nothing. This is a shift from seekers to soldiers. In sociology, this is called identity protective cognition. When a belief is tied to your identity, you'll refuse to reason honestly if it would threaten your belonging. It's not about evidence anymore. It's not about integrity. It's about protecting the self and the group at all costs. Investigating becomes betraying. Questioning becomes deserting. Doubting becomes defecting. The banner must be held high, not because it's proven true, but because the group needs it to be true to survive. Here's the tragedy I see now standing on the other side as a secular humanist. Religion teaches you to mistake conformity for community. It teaches you to mistake submission for salvation. It teaches you to protect a belief even when that belief is slowly suffocating your own growth, your own questioning, and your own humanity. In trying to save their faith, so many good-hearted people are losing the very tools that would allow them to flourish. Curiosity, critical thought, empathy across difference, and authentic personal meaning. But here's the good news. Once you see this dynamic, once you name it, you can free yourself from it. You can realize your worth doesn't depend on slogans. Your meaning doesn't require submission. Your community doesn't have to be built on defending unprovable claims. You can build a life rooted in compassion, reason, growth, and creativity. A life big enough to face the unknown without lying to yourself to feel safe. Because when you stop carrying a banner you didn't even get to design, you finally get to build something real, something human, something free. Christianity for many stopped being a quest for truth a long time ago. It became a lifeboat for identity, even if the lifeboat never makes it to shore. But let's also talk about evangelism as enforced submission, not curiosity. Evangelism isn't about curiosity, it's about control. When I was a pastor, I used to believe that evangelism was an act of love. We would say it all the time. We're just trying to save souls. We're just trying to spread the good news, the gospel. But when I stepped outside of the system, when I finally had the courage to interrogate it, I saw the hard truth. Evangelism wasn't about inviting people into a discovery of truth. It was about forcing people into a performance of agreement. Sociologically, here's what's happening. When a group's dominance in society starts slipping, when their influence is shrinking, their youth are leaving, their culture is being questioned, they don't double down on persuasion, they double down on coercion. They shift from making compelling arguments to applying guilt, things like you're betraying your family, or shame, you're dirty without God, you're no good without God, or threats, you will burn in hell, or even emotional blackmail. Look at what you're doing to your mother by doubting. The message isn't explore freely and see if it's true. The message is conform or you will pay for your doubt. And here's the even deeper layer. When Christians evangelize aggressively, they're not just trying to convince you, they're trying to silence their own doubts through your compliance. Because if you walk away from their faith, if you reject their God, you force them to face a terrifying question they can't bear to ask.
Working individuals, couples, and families in Washington could get a refund of up to $1,200.
What if it's not true? So instead of wrestling with that question, they wage psychological war on your freedom. They need you to behave as if you believe, even if you don't. They need you to stay in the play, even if you no longer believe the script. They need you to mouth the words because your silence sounds like their own hidden doubts coming back to haunt them. In psychology, this is tied to social dominance orientation. When a group's privileged status feels threatened, they seek to reassert control over others to stabilize their own hierarchy. Evangelism in this framework isn't about expanding truth, it's about enforcing an order where they're right and you are wrong and everyone knows their place. When you refuse to submit, when you choose to think, to question, to step away, you don't just free yourself, you expose the truth they're hiding from. They don't really know. They just need you to pretend so that they can keep pretending too.
And again, that was exactly the conclusion I came to when I was 12 years old, when I was kicked out of confirmation class for asking too many questions. That just told me everything that about these adults leading, this worship center. There's a lot of things in the Bible that do not make sense and deserve to be questioned. And for asking the questions, punishment? Again, religion's bankrupt. And for all you Christians out there, remember, Christianity, it tolerates slavery. For all the women out there who are Christians, you could say the book is almost very anti-woman. There's a lot of things that are messed up in the Bible. And again, Jesus did say he came to divide families. And as we know, the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, they are very good at creating division in society through the psychological operations that they run in media. Remember, it was the Jesuits who are behind the pandemic of 2020. They are the ones who simulated it the day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China. And think about how many families were divided over that. Think about how the tactics of that operation tied right in with the scripture of none other than Jesus Christ himself. Let's continue with Darante.
And once you see that, the guilt loses its grip, the threat loses their teeth, the shame stops working, because you realize your mind doesn't belong to their fear. Your conscience isn't theirs to co-opt. Your humanity isn't a weapon for their insecurity. You owe no one your submission, especially not a system built to silence your most sacred gift, which is your ability to question. When persuasion gives way to coercion, it's not a sign of strength. It's a confession of fear. What's up, y'all? Before we go any further, if you're feeling the energy, the clarity, the call for something deeper, I need you to know this isn't just a YouTube channel. This is the front door to a whole movement. I'm Darante Lamar, founder of DLDD World Group, which is a people-centered, future-focused force for change, where we're building programs, platforms, resources, and communities for those of us who choose truth, compassion, and human potential over superstition. We have Bridge City Global, which is our growing Sunday secular community where you can connect, grow, and be a part of something that actually moves humanity forward. We have Window Shop, which is our store built to fuel creators empower communities, and provide the tools for personal and collective growth. And then coming soon, we have Omniverse, which will be our own streaming platform where secular voices, real stories, and original content will have a home beyond the algorithms, as well as Mastermind, our revolutionary AI-powered platform to help you think clearer, grow faster, and build your best future with science and strategy, as well as Together We Can, our grassroots initiative, because real change doesn't come from waiting. It comes from building together, starting right now. I've also got a few books available on Amazon written to challenge, empower, and liberate minds, and even more on the way. And if you're ready to take it deeper, we just launched the Bridge City Global courses, including our upcoming secular ministry program, which is designed to train, equip, and license a new generation of humanist leaders for this world, not the next one. This is bigger than me. It's bigger than content. It's a movement. And if you're ready, if you're hungry, if you know there has to be a better way to live, to lead, to love, to connect, then you belong here. So subscribe, get involved, grow with us, because the future is human and it's happening now. All right, let's get back into it.
And by the way, some people don't like when people have advertisements in the middle of their videos. I'm going to play his because we're sharing his work, and I actually like the way he's doing it. He's trying to build a movement. Same thing we've been trying to do over here. I would have to say I've been relatively unsuccessful to date. Sometimes you got to watch how other people do it and take note. So I'm going to be on the outside looking in at if he has success with this, but everything that he's doing there are things we've tried to do. I've tried to build my own platform, tried to build a movement, put together lessons. So yeah, I see a very similar person here, and he has some skills to offer. And by the way, for anybody out there trying to lose weight, I was watching one of his videos. This man said he weighed almost 600 pounds, and I think he said he's down to 250. So he's lost over half his body weight. Again, just another reminder that action is everything. If you're looking in the mirror and you don't know how you got as big as you are, like a lot of Americans, hey, this guy's also figured out how to overcome that problem. And my God, 600 pounds. He must be a pretty tall guy to have once been nearly 600 pounds. But this guy might inspire you in more ways than one. All right, let's continue.
To our conversation. Let's talk about why Christians are not investigating their own claims. Now, the first thing we see here is cognitive dissonance avoidance. Investigating claims could generate uncomfortable dissonance. It's easier to suppress curiosity than to risk unraveling their whole worldview. But then there's also sacred canopy, a term popularized by Peter Berger. Religion provides a covering over society, if you will, a shared reality. Investigating too closely risks poking holes in that canopy, which would expose the individual not just to intellectual uncertainty, but social isolation. Thus, the dishonesty you observe isn't just personal. Is systemic dishonesty for group maintenance.
Did you know that some of the biggest market moves, actually most of the biggest market moves, actually have?
The sociological dishonesty of many Christians isn't mainly about personal malice. It's about protecting the social body from perceived existential threats. They don't investigate because investigation risks disintegration. They pressure others not because they're confident, but because they're terrified of collapse. Now, a good question becomes, how would Christians behave if their religion was about truth? Number one, they'd be defining clear, testable claims. First, they would start by precisely defining what they're claiming in ways that could theoretically be proven true or false. So, example, instead of just saying God is love, which is vague and generic, they would claim God intervenes in human events through miraculous healings that defy natural explanation and have been clearly, demonstrably, and repeatedly validated. And no, Benny Hinn, Reinhard Bonnke, and the Virgin Mother testimonials don't count. A truth seeker distinguishes between poetic or metaphoric claims and empirical claims and focuses investigation on the latter. Most religious claim deliberately blurs poetic and factual claims to avoid being pinned down. And then also seeking disconfirmation, not just confirmation. An honest investigator tries to disprove their own belief, not just cherry-pick proof to support it. They would actually look for evidence against miracles. They would read critiques of Christianity with the intent to understand. They would study other religions to see if their own experiences are truly unique. Many religious communities punish people who sincerely doubt. Doubt is seen as betrayal, not intellectual virtue. But then there's also the idea of using independent standards of evidence. They would not accept faith as the method of investigation. Instead, they would use the same standards they use for every other truth claim: verification, reproducibility, consistency across observers, and parsimony. Simplest explanation preferred. If a Christian wouldn't accept faith as evidence for Islam or Hinduism, they wouldn't accept it for Christianity either. Religions often teach special pleading. Our belief is different, so it doesn't need normal or standard evidence. But then there's also the willingness to walk away. A real investigator is willing to walk away if the evidence doesn't hold. If you investigate and realize your belief isn't supported, you adjust your belief. You don't twist the investigation to protect your conclusion. In high commitment religious groups, loss of faith equals loss of family, community, and purpose. So walking away feels like self-annihilation. If Christians were genuinely invested in investigating their claims, we would expect to see defined claims that are clear and testable, investigations that seek disconfirmation, independent standards of evidence, and a reservation of belief in anticipation of the results. And here's the punchline. This dishonesty isn't just that Christians believe incredible things. The deeper dishonesty is that they pretend that they've investigated when they actually aren't willing to lose. Let's take a look at a few of these claims. The Bible is the Word of God. Well, if they genuinely investigated, they would study biblical scholarship, including textual criticism, translation history, and canon formation. They would confront the reality that the Bible is a collection of human-edited, conflicting, and politically selected documents. They would notice the archaeological, historical, and moral problems within its pages. Most Christians assume the Bible's divine authority because they were told it and feel anxiety when encountering anything that challenges it. They rarely, if ever, seriously engage with evidence against divine authorship. Another claim is that Jesus rose from the dead. If they genuinely investigated, they would ask how resurrection claims are treated when made by other religious or modern cults. Spoiler alert, they're rejected immediately. They would study the history of legend development, psychology of mass belief, and death cults. They would confront the fact that the resurrection is based solely on hearsay decades after the supposed event with no neutral eyewitnesses. They start with the assumption that the resurrection happened, and they ignore every competing explanation: legend, hallucination, misinterpretation, and mythologizing. Prayer works is another claim that they often use. And if they genuinely investigated, they would set up controlled studies of prayer outcomes versus non-prayer control groups, which have already been done, by the way, and show no significant effect. They would ask why amputees, for example, are never regrown through prayer. They move the goalpost, saying things like maybe God answered spiritually or maybe God said no this time. Anytime prayer visibly fails, meaning they aren't actually testing prayer at all. And then a popular claim we hear is that Christianity is morally superior. If they genuinely investigated, they would study Christianity's role in colonialism, slavery, genocide, religious wars, and suppression of women and minorities. They would compare the rates of abuse, divorce, addiction, etc. among Christians to non-believers and find they're not superior. They cling to the idea of moral superiority because it's tied to their identity, not because they've evaluated historical or sociological evidence. Another popular claim is that without God, life has no meaning. If they genuinely investigated, they would explore philosophies of existentialism, humanism, Buddhism, secular ethics, and the list goes on. They would study how people without religion create profound meaning through relationships, creativity, growth, and service. They rarely attempt to understand secular meaning making because they have a vested interest in believing that their loss would be catastrophic, not just for them, but for everyone. Christians are not defending their claims because they've evaluated them. They're defending their claims because their identity is built upon them. And that is the deepest dishonesty of all. Not believing the unbelievable, but pretending to have questioned the unquestionable, when the only thing they ever truly protected was their fear. They wrap it in scripture, they drown it in songs, they baptize it in tradition. But at the bottom of it all lies a terrifying unspoken confession. We don't really know, and we are either too lazy or too afraid to find out. Meanwhile, those who had the courage to tear down their own idols, to step away from the safety of slogans, to confront the terrifying, wondrous, breathtaking reality of life without a net, those are the ones who found something far greater than certainty. They found honesty, They found humanity. They found the sacredness of being fully awake, even when the answers are not handed to them on a gilded platter. The dishonest cling to the banners they were handed, but the honest, the truly free, are building a world with their own two hands, not to defend a delusion, but to honor the immeasurable beauty of truth and the astonishing capacity of humanity. If you're enjoying these moments and want to stay plugged into the movement, check out some of the videos on the screen to find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes. Love you all, and until next time, keep rising.
Okay, so that's Darante Lamar in his video, The Psychology of Christian Dishonesty, Why Truth Doesn't Matter. Again, in terms of the Christian perspective, he's not saying that truth doesn't matter. Again, I think very well articulated, and I've watched a handful of his videos now, and some of it does get a little bit redundant, but you do got to pound home the point. I'm very redundant in my work as well. And again, I think any honest Christian would have to ponder a lot of the points he's making. But again, the problem is, if they're all full of this fear, and I've always said the same thing, Christianity is rooted in fear. Because you're told that if you question, that's bad. That could send you to the eternal afterlife that is hell. Again, do you really think Creator would make it that way? That if you question when it's a God-given ability, you're questioning a book. There's no evidence anywhere that God wrote that book. There is evidence that it was translated, man, just like I said, some things were omitted. Some things have been doctored. Again, you look at the original languages. The Bible was written in a New Testament for Christians. It was written in ancient Greek. There's words that express ideas and concepts that cannot be communicated in English. And this is a problem with a lot of religions when you just language when you translate. Sweet lady, she's from Burma. In their religion, I keep saying religion. In their language, there's a lot of rewarding words that focus on the positive, but not words that focus on the negative. For example, there's a word for good child, but there's no word for bad child. And I find that interesting. In a way, it's like, well, I guess it's going more for that positive reinforcement. Again, there's just so many obvious problems with religion, and that's the thing too. You're reading a text that's about a part of the world. Like if you're a English-speaking Christian in the United States of America who's never even left your own city, like a lot of people, or even left their own state, you're believing in this story that's from another part of the world, from another time where these things supposedly happened way back then that no one has ever seen happen now. I mean, at what part do your critical thinking skills pop off and say, how come this doesn't happen anymore? Why did this only happen thousands of years ago? Why do I have to believe this story that doesn't resonate at all with this moment, or I'm a bad person? Is this even true? Because that's exactly what I was doing when I was 12 years old. And I feel like it's what any reasonable thinking person should be doing and thinking and asking. And imagine being the adult that has to, oversee the confirmation class and has to tell the student, enough with the interruptions of your questions. We're going to continue to read the verses. Well, don't we need to stop and think about it? That's enough. Wait in the hallway. When your mom's here, we're going to talk about this. Okay. Yeah, we can't have your son here anymore. He's too disruptive to the Bible study. We just want to read the verses. We don't want to think about them. Again, it blows me away that more people don't come to the exact same conclusions. But I suppose it's cowardice, right? It's the same reason you see a lot of people not doing the right things. A lot of people are cowardly. They're afraid to confront authority. They're afraid to confront evil. They don't want to step out of line. What he was saying about questioning demands punishment within religion, isn't it the same thing within our society as well? That's why I always say religion's the foundation of everything going on. If you questioned after 9/11, if you questioned the legitimacy of that day, How did those buildings turn to dust as they came to the ground? People acted like you were insane. You got called all kinds of names. What's wrong with you? Do you really think that they would lie to us? Yeah, absolutely. Um, Again, it's just, and not to mention 9/11 had everything to do with religion, right? It pitted all the Abrahamic religions against each other in a way. 60 Minutes ran the story about the dancing Israelis. Islam became the enemy of the West, a dangerous religion full of fundamentalist radicals who could be packing suitcase bombs hidden in a turban. Again, this is what religion's really here for, to divide and conquer. And don't forget, George W. Bush, supposedly a Christian, he said we are waging a new crusade, plus everything else we know about that day. But yeah, I want to take a second here and see if we do have any listening Christians out there. Perhaps you're one of the people who quit supporting my work in the last week. I've lost a lot of support since we launched this new podcast. I've lost over $500 in support a month, which is quite a bit. I mean, you add that up, that's over $6,000 lost for the year since we launched the podcast. And that's because there has been much of a focus on religion and talking about religion and what a problem it is and what a plague it is and why people need to break free of it. Doesn't mean you're going to become a bad person. You break free of it because now you're breaking free of part of the control structure that the authority has put upon us. They want people in this religious mindset. It makes them believe nonsense. It makes them believe lies because the authority said so. This is exactly the tactic that is used on us every single day, from 9/11 to the scandemic. The authorities believe what they're saying. There's a deadly virus out there. Get this experimental jab. Put a mask over your face, 2 masks over your face. Stand 6 feet apart. Don't you dare question. It's all the same stuff. And again, it was the Society of Jesus, aka the Jesuits, who run the World Economic Forum, that did simulate the scandemic the same day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China, 1 month before the outbreak. And don't forget, the military World Games also go back to Italy and the Jesuits, aka the Society of Jesus. So yeah, I would like to see if we have some callers out there, see if we can get a little conversation going. And again, since a lot of you guys stopped supporting the work, you might still be out there listening. That's fine. How about tonight? Call in and say, listen, just explain yourself. Listen, Zach, I can't support you. You do great work, but I mean, I just want to hear it. Your message is going to take me to just whatever it is. I got to hear it. At the end of the day, again, I just think it paints the picture perfectly. Stopping supporting the guy that's here every single day straight for going on 12 years straight, only missed 1 day, and that's because my house was burglarized and ransacked that day and my computer was stolen, so I couldn't really do any work that day other than clean up my house. The 1 day I haven't worked, going on for 12 years straight come this August, you're going to give up on that guy who has an unprecedented message, broke a code that nobody had ever broken before, because I don't want to be part of your cult and I'm exposing why it's bad. To me, that speaks to the problem of religion right there. That your dogma, at the end of the day, something that's make-believe and as real as Santa Claus, it's more important to you than the actual hardworking truther who had people actually gotten behind, a long time ago. Actually, we probably would have stopped all this stuff in its tracks. I told everybody in 2015 why they were going to launch their next 9/11 type thing in 2020, how these people work on the 19-year cycle of the moon, the C19. 19 years after 9/11 and the 19 hijackers, here's C19. And again, 9/11 was 19 years after the war on drugs, which was 19 years after the war on JFK that launched Vietnam, which was 19 years after the year the most troops were deployed to World War II. These people work in cycles. And religion really is one of the things that they implement into every operation that they pull off on humanity. I did just open up the phone line, and it is that 509 number on the bottom of the screen. Again, I really hope there are some religious people out there listening and thinking, and I just want to hear your feedback, whatever it is. How did that man's video and his words impact you at all? Did it make one bit of difference? Maybe it didn't. You're devout in your belief. Why? Is it because of fear? Is it because of fear? Is it simply because of fear? Because if you don't believe, you might lose your shot at the eternal afterlife and you might end up in hell. Is that the real reason? Is it the real reason? Again, for all the people out there who think they're better than me because they believe in this story, what have you done with your life to help anyone? I don't want to sit here and toot my own horn. I know I've done a lot. I've done a lot. I gave up a great job once upon a time to essentially work for nothing in a group home and a teen homeless shelter. Chose to go back to school and pay a bunch of money to get a teaching certificate, which I knew wasn't going to pay anything, so that I could teach in inner city Seattle and help out children who need good leaders. Did this for 5 years every single day without raising a single penny on purpose to show that I was here for a message. Again, plus a whole lot more. A lot of people I help behind the scenes right now. What are you doing in your life that makes you so great? Is it just believing in this story? You know, I know there's people in this community that choose to support other people doing this work who essentially just plagiarize my work, but then also say they believe in Jesus. People who slander my name and plagiarize my work and say they believe in Jesus and they pull some of the people from my work. I see people who used to be around here now only in their videos saying, oh yeah, I never really liked Zach because he's not a Jesus person. It's like, well, look at who you're rocking with now. You're rocking with somebody who literally steals my work, slanders my name, and you think they're better because they're in your cult? I mean, let's be honest. Okay, so far no callers. Nobody wants to respond. If not, we can move on to the next video. Maybe we'll watch one more video of his, and maybe we'll have some people ready to say something. And yes, I'm aware. Some people said I need to do this show earlier. It's hard right now with the little one's schedule. You know, she goes to bed at about 8 p.m., and we got to get her to bed before I have time to come on here and do the podcast. Okay. You guys, I just saw the guy. You guys, I think I'm looking good with this. I need a haircut. This wasn't supposed to be the hairdo tonight. That's just the way it turned out after I took a shower. But I realized I got these new lights too that they say you should use when you do your podcast. I didn't even turn it on tonight. It's a little bit too bright though. All right, if we don't have more calls for right now, I'm gonna shut back down the phone line, and we're gonna jump into another video of his. I haven't seen it, but I like the title of it, and it might it might help stimulate some thought in people who desperately need it. So again, we're watching the channel of Darante Lamar, a former pastor, and he's got this video here: saved or set up, the toxic logic of serve him because he saved you. By the way, you know what? I gotta make a point too about the word save. You guys know what's behind the gematria of save, correct? You know what save equals, right? Did you see, by the way, that TD Jakes resigned this week, and that was Sunday, and then the next day, a black church, if you will, burned up in Memphis on the same day the Tyree Nichols case began. Again, just I might have to jump off into that real quick before we watch another video of his. Hold on, let me adjust this screen here for a minute. So the word save, again, if you're new here, the Kabbalistic practice of coding numbers into words is gematria. You learn this, you just see through it all. Of course, the number of the Cabal is 47. They've encoded this on all things authority through the English language. The word save is 47. You can also see the 61, just like Christian is 47 and 61. And you noticed also that save is 11, like Jesus is 11. Again, if you're new here, you learn this gematria thing. Jesus equals 74, like cross, like Messiah, like gospel, like parables, like Jesus Christ, like English, like gematria, like occult, like Masonic, like how the Masons have those big old Bibles. Again, holiday for Holy Day is 74, like Independence Day, this Christian-speaking nation where the genocide of the natives was essentially endorsed by the Bible or the interpretations of it. Again, you learn this code, you will see through the ritualism that's going on. But T.D. Jakes, black minister who runs a mega church, stepped down this week. There's rumors he's connected to Diddy, and of course, Diddy's trial's about to start on May 5th while he's 55 years old, and T.D. Jakes' church is 55 years old, having been founded in 1970. Remember, Satan equals 55, satanic equals 67, like T.D. Jakes' age. But yeah, just, T.D. Jakes, 47. Christian, 47. Save, 47. Remember, authority, 47. Government, 47. Republican, 47. Democrat, 47. DC, 47. You know what I mean? President, 47. White House, 47. Here we are in the time of number 47. Trump, 47. These things aren't an accident. Here's my name, Zachary, no 47. Here's my middle name, Keith, no 47. Here's my last name, Hubbard, no 47. Here's my first and last name, no 47. In case you're getting the idea that maybe just everything equals 47. Here, Darante, not 47. What's his name again? Darante Lamar. Darante Lamar, not 47. Lamar alone, not 47. I'm just making the point that not everything's 47, but the things of the cabal, and by the way, the cabal itself is also 47. They encoded this on purpose. Again, the Masons study the 47th problem of Euclid. The Masons dropped their cornerstones for establishing foundation on 47 date numerology, and foundation itself is 47. And what's the foundation of this English-speaking nation? It is Christianity. It's the religion that condones slavery and tells you to turn the other cheek and give Caesar what's his. And by the way, Caesar 47 in light of all roads leading to Rome. Anyway, T.D. Jakes resigns this week by the numbers, 322 days after his birthday. Of course, that's the ultimate number of Kabbalah, where this whole thing of letters and numbers comes from. They say the first Gutenberg Bible was published on March 22nd, 322. Genesis 322 speaks to the tree of life and knowing good and evil, just like how the Kabbalistic tree of life has a good half and an evil half. But anyway. Also, the historically black church that burned up the day the Tyreek Nichols case began, that church became a historically black church in 1949, meaning 76 years ago, like Acts 7:6, like 400 years of slavery, slave 76, Negro 76, blue 76, Rasta 76, your first black president, Barack Obama 76. And don't forget that Obama announced he was running for president 31 years to the day of Black History Month being recognized by the federal government on February 10th of 76. 31 years to the day. You can see how Obama equals 31 and 14 like slave. In his book, A Promised Land, 76 and 59, just like slave. He released that book on the day, leaving 44 days left in the year, like Acts is the 44th book of the Bible. We all know what they did to OJ 59 days after the Super Bowl at age 76, as the masters were teeing off in terms of slaves, obey your masters, Ephesians 6, 5-9. And we all know what they did in week 6 of the NFL season that followed. Home teams went 4-10 like he died on April 10th. Again, the week began with his 49ers winning and it ended with his Bills winning. Not to mention, that was week 6 and the Niners got their 666th win in the land of the Beastquake, winning their 6th straight versus the Seahawks on the 47th parallel. There's another 47-word beast. And again, like I've always said, hiding evil in the package of good. That's also what the cabal does all the time. Put a yellow bumper sticker on your car and support the war on brown people overseas who had nothing to do with the towers being demolished, including Building 7, that was 47 floors tall with 47,000 square feet per floor. Look it up. Those are facts. Go along with the pokey doke. Put your slave muzzle on and stand 6 feet apart in the pandemic that was declared 666 days after the first simulation for it. Clade X on Mercuralia, May 15, 2018. The second one, Event 201, was on October 18th, like Satan comes to earth in Luke 10:18. 10:18:19 was a date with 47 numerology, the day they simulated COVID with Event 201. And of course, as we know, the Holy Bible equals 201, just like the Jesuit order equals 201. The ones who really spread the religion, the Jesus religion. It's made a lot of people very passive, very submissive to authority, very prone to bullshit. So anyway, with that said, let's saved or set up. Saved or set up. Yeah, exactly. Let's watch this one.
The truth is, behind closed doors, the P word became my secret sin at age 10. And for the next
God, who Jesus saved the world from their sins, so you owe him your life. At first glance, Jesus saved you, so serve him sounds like a noble exchange, a life for a life, gratitude, allegiance, loyalty even. But beneath the poetry is a circle with no exit. Who defined the problem? God. Who set the consequences? God. Who chose blood as the only acceptable currency? You guessed it, God. Who offered himself as the solution? God. Who demands eternal servitude in return? God. This isn't a rescue, it's role play. God plays both arsonist and firefighter, both judge and executioner, both abuser and savior. You were sentenced by the same one who offers clemency if you bow forever. The salvation that Jesus offers becomes an illusion. Jesus saved the world from their sins. It sounds final, it sounds complete, but it's not. It comes with clauses, conditions that undermine the entire premise. So wait, did he save the world or didn't he? If a gift can be revoked unless you act a certain way, it's not a gift, it's a transaction. If salvation has fine print, it's not freedom, it's conditional control. This theology functions not through love, but through psychological manipulation, tapping two core vulnerabilities. Gratitude guilt, which is how dare you question the one who died for you. This frames servitude as the only moral response to sacrifice, even if you never asked for it. It's the divine equivalent of someone jumping in front of a train you weren't in danger from and then demanding your life in return. And then the second thing is fear conditioning. If you don't serve, obey, and believe, he'll punish you forever. Hell becomes the stick to salvation's carrot, an eternal threat. This isn't guidance, this is coercion disguised as compassion. They call it love, but the logic is abusive. I saved you, so now you owe me everything. If you ever leave, I'll punish you. If you question me, I'll abandon you. If you don't believe in me the right way, I'll destroy you. That's not divine intimacy. That's theology via trauma bond. And when people begin to break free from that manipulation, the response isn't curiosity, it's condemnation. Rejecting the abuser is reframed as betraying the one who loved you so much. So let's talk about a few of these conditional clauses. The first one that I want to bring to your attention is that you must accept that he rose from the dead or he won't save you. The theology here is faith as gatekeeping to grace. On the theological level, this clause reveals one of Christianity's central paradoxes. Grace is unconditional until it isn't. Let's talk about some of the key contradictions. Number one, grace is not earned, but belief is required. If belief is the condition, then grace is no longer a gift, it's a reward for mental submission. Salvation is for all, but only if you accept a single unverifiable event. The entire offer of eternal life hinges on whether or not you mentally affirm a miracle that happened allegedly 2,000 years ago without witnesses you can question or evidence you can verify. Why would a God who knows everything and can do anything require belief in a specific historical claim as the prerequisite to eternal rescue? This isn't divine generosity, it's a theological ultimatum. On the psychological front, this clause leverages belief not as an outcome of thought, but as a measure of loyalty and submission. You're told that what you believe determines your worth and fate, not who you are, what you do, or how you live. This creates a dissonance where honest doubt becomes dangerous and questioning becomes betrayal. The emotional weight of eternal damnation for disbelief hijacks the brain's survival instincts. This isn't intellectual conviction, it's psychological pressure dressed up as faith. Doubts about the resurrection must be hidden or repressed, especially in social environments that equate disbelief with rebellion, or even worse, evil. This breeds internal shame, fake assent, and trauma loops in deconstruction. Belief under threat isn't faith, it's psychological hostage taking. When you strip away the hymnals and the halos, this clause reads more like this. A divine being created a loophole in the eternal punishment he designed, but you can only access it if you mentally agree to a story with no living witnesses, or else. This isn't truth-seeking. It's spiritual blackmail. It's fear in a tuxedo. It's a socio-psychological control mechanism wrapped in the pseudo-language of love. Another conditional clause, though, is you must accept him as your Lord, Master, and King for all eternity, or he won't save you. Now, the theology here is a God who won't save without submission. Theologically, this clause reveals the monarchical roots of Christian soteriology. Salvation isn't just about belief, it's about eternal obedience to a ruler. Now, let's take a look at a few key contradictions. Alleged love demands lifelong servitude. Love, by definition, should not require domination. Yet here, salvation is contingent on accepting Jesus not as a friend or liberator, but as sovereign ruler over your entire existence. This is freedom in Christ with chains attached. Christianity often talks about freedom, but this clause exposes the bait and switch. Your salvation only works if you agree to a divine dictatorship. There is no offer of partnership, no consent beyond one option: kneel or burn. The language of Lord, Master, and King is not metaphorical. It reinforces the theological hierarchy: God on top, you on the bottom, forever. This isn't salvation, it's sanctified subjugation. Psychologically, this clause plays on the trauma bond, making surrender to power feel like the only morally appropriate response to alleged love. Among the many cognitive impacts is self-erasure as virtue. You're not just asked to believe, you're asked to abandon autonomy, to internalize a role of eternal servant. The more you give up your identity, will, and desires, the more faithful you're considered. This is gratitude twisted into subjugation. He died for you, so the least you can do is make him your king.
So instead of us taking hours and hours and hours to search for a song that sounds like some of our favorite songs that we listen to on Spotify,
that's not love, that's emotional leverage. The framing makes any resistance feel immoral, even if the terms are abusive, which leads to a fear of spiritual rebellion. Even questioning this eternal hierarchy becomes dangerous. Independent thought is not just discouraged, it's seen as demonic or prideful. You're taught that rejecting domination is rejecting salvation. This clause rewires the psyche to equate surrender with safety. Sociologically, this clause serves as a blueprint for authoritarian religion and explains why hierarchical control thrives in many Christian spaces.
And again, here we are in the U.S., you could say a Christian space, predominantly that is the religion that almost everyone in this nation came up in. And sure, that might be changing as they bring in refugees from parts of the world that we've destroyed since the New Crusades, as the purposeful divisiveness they want to see in society. After creating all this fear-mongering of Islam, they've brought a lot of Muslims into the U.S., but still the vast majority are Christian. And of course, the Jesuits have kept open the southern border to funnel in the Catholics. But yeah, again, just fear and submission to authority. That's why I've always said this. I've said this from the beginning. Religion is the foundation that they need for everyone's mindset. Everything works upon it. And had I not broken away from religion as a 12-year-old, I probably also wouldn't have broken away from any other authoritarian things, including believing what I see on the news. These things go hand in hand. However, I do have to admit, there are a lot of people in this truth community that see through the news, but man, they just can't see through their religion. And almost all of you guys, you all say the same thing. Somebody left a long comment today. Zach, you have such a beautiful daughter. If you don't wake up, you're not going to be able to spend eternity with her. Rest assured, I'm going to teach her to not ever say things so dumb for her entire life. Your fear is pathetic. Let's continue.
Social implications here of mirroring monarchy equals mirroring control structures. By requiring believers to accept a kingly Christ, the religion primes followers to accept hierarchical leadership structures here and now. Pastors, elders, husbands, kings, and presidents as divinely ordained. Power flows down, obedience flows up. This clause normalizes top-down control where questioning leadership, divine or human, is viewed as rebellion. Communities built on this model don't encourage freedom, they enforce allegiance. This supports ideas like the divine right of kingship. If Jesus demands you call him Lord, don't be surprised when earthly leaders do the same. Religion becomes a pipeline for political and patriarchal submission. This isn't just theology. It's social programming for authoritarian culture. When you strip away the churchy language, this clause says you must accept Jesus as your absolute ruler forever or he'll destroy you. That's not a relationship. That's not a gift. That's a cosmic dictatorship. Eternal loyalty in exchange for protection, a heavenly racket. And if someone said this in any context outside of religion, we'd all call it what it is: coercion, control, cult behavior. Another conditional clause is that you must serve him or he won't save you. The theology here is the collapse of grace into labor. Theologically, this clause exposes a major flaw in Christian soteriology. Salvation is not free. It requires ongoing labor and loyalty. Some key contradictions here are that grace becomes wage-based. If your eternity depends on your willingness to serve, then your salvation isn't grace. It's a job with a performance review, and God is both employer and executioner. Service is not optional, it's salvific. Serving God is often presented as an overflow of love, but this clause makes it mandatory. Refuse to serve, and your eternal reward becomes eternal punishment. This is divine narcissism. What kind of perfect being demands service from creatures he made and threatens them if they decline? That's not holiness, that's hunger for worship. This isn't grace, it's theological enslavement in divine packaging. Sociologically, this clause is the engine of religious empire. It trains people to see service, not just belief, as the price of belonging. Obedience becomes identity. You're not just a believer, you're a worker, a soldier in the army of the Lord, a servant. And if you stop working, your very identity and eternity is at risk. Volunteer labor becomes holy currency. Churches, ministries, and movements thrive on unpaid labor justified by this clause. Service is no longer a gift, it's a threat response. Power flows to the top in this way. Leaders become God's representative, and serving God often means serving the church with little room to question authority. Dissent is reframed as disobedience to God himself. This isn't service, it's institutional exploitation with divine branding. So let's strip the robe off of this one. If you don't serve me, I'll destroy you. That's not divinity. That's a dictator's ultimatum. That's not a relationship. That's a threat. And when you call it love, you're gaslighting the very concept of love itself. A truly loving being wouldn't demand servitude in exchange for safety, and a truly free person wouldn't call that salvation. Let's unpack another conditional clause. You must not blaspheme against the Holy Spirit, or guess what? He won't save you. Now, the theology here is that it's the one sin God can't or won't forgive. This clause introduces a paradox to Christian theology, the unforgivable sin.
Unstocked at adobe.com, it's easy to find the perfect video with advanced filters that fine-tune your search.
In a faith built on total forgiveness, there's a single offense that allegedly overrides even the blood of Jesus. There's quite a few key contradictions here. One is that grace has a blind spot. The very system that claims God can forgive anything, murder, genocide, treason, draws the line at a comment about a spirit being, undefined and weaponized. The Bible never clearly defines what blaspheming the Holy Spirit actually is. Some say it's calling the Spirit evil. Others say it's disbelief, apostasy, or mocking divine works, whatever the hell that means. The ambiguity keeps believers in fear. A single sentence spoken in doubt, grief, or ignorance is enough to damn you forever. What kind of eternal justice system is this? This isn't moral law, it's spiritual entrapment. This clause exploits psychological uncertainty to create a state of spiritual paranoia. It leads to cognitive impacts such as unforgivable anxiety. Once you hear about the unforgivable sin, you start worrying. Have I committed it? What if I've done the wrong thing? What if I've thought the wrong thing, said something once? That fear loops endlessly. For some, it becomes scrupulosity, a form of religious OCD. This also leads to fear of thought, which could lead to suppression of self. You can't even think critically about the Holy Spirit without worrying you'll be doomed. That makes personal development damn near impossible. You're not growing, you're censoring. The less clearly something is defined, the more you can make people fear it. And fear becomes a leash. You don't question the Holy Spirit, not because you understand, but because you're scared to even ask. It's not faith, it's learned mental helplessness. Let's call it what it is. If you say the wrong thing about the invisible third member of our Godhead, even once, I'll never forgive you. That's not love. That's not justice. That's divine landmine theology, booby trap belief designed to paralyze curiosity and weaponize ambiguity. It isn't grace. It isn't morality. It's a spiritual gag order designed to keep you scared, silent, and submissive. And this last conditional clause, you must follow his rules, or the apostles' rules, or maybe the prophet's rules, or the law, or guess what? He won't save you. The theology here is the moving goalpost of salvation. This clause exposes a fundamental theological contradiction. Which rules matter and when? It reveals that Christianity doesn't run on a singular moral standard, it runs on a fragmented patchwork of selective obedience. There are several key contradictions here. The biggest question is, whose rules? Jesus said, love your neighbor. Paul said women should be silent. Leviticus says, don't eat shrimp. John says, hate the world. Which one of these rules are eternal? Which of these rules are cultural? Which sends you to hell? The law was fulfilled unless it wasn't. Christians often say Jesus fulfilled the law, but many still cling to rules about sexuality, marriage, or gender roles from the law. So are we under the law, grace, or some combination of both? If we're under the grace and law at the same time, well, what we've created is theological confusion. If salvation is by grace through faith, then rules shouldn't matter. But if breaking rules nullifies grace, then faith isn't enough. That contradiction creates endless division, reinterpretation, and theological loopholes. This isn't divine clarity, it's spiritual red tape. Psychologically, this clause turns salvation into a compliance test, and you're never quite sure if you've passed. With so many rules from different sources, believers are left guessing which sins are forgivable, which are deal breakers, and whether they've already messed up beyond repair. Even small infractions, real or imagined, can trigger deep anxiety. Did I pray enough? Was that thought sinful? Did I follow the Spirit or the apostle? Autonomy becomes dangerous. You're conditioned to obey even contradictory commands because questioning them might be rebellion, and rebellion might equal damnation. This isn't holiness, it's spiritual people-pleasing with eternal stakes. Now, sociologically, this clause functions as a compliance mechanism that reinforces power structures and moral gatekeeping. Rules determine inclusion here. From what you wear, to who you marry, to how you worship, the rules become a gate. Those who conform are in, those who don't are threats or heretics. They use selective enforcement to enable control. Religious leaders often pick which rules to emphasize based on cultural convenience, personal bias, or political alignment. This allows them to enforce obedience while preserving plausible deniability, and these rules then divide and conquer. Entire denominations split over which rules matter most: Sabbath keeping, tongues, women in leadership, gay marriage. Instead of fostering unity, the rule-based clause fragments believers into warring camps. The rules don't just control behavior, they shape who has the right to speak, lead, or even belong. So here's the real translation. You must perfectly follow a constantly shifting set of rules, some divine, some apostolic, some ancient, some cultural, or God won't save you. That's not salvation. That's a cosmic bureaucracy where nobody knows who's actually in charge. It's not love. It's not grace. It's a moral maze with eternal consequences built on fear, confusion, and obedience to authority over actual understanding. But see, here's the big question. Wait, didn't you say he already saved the world? Then why is he coming back to finish the job? The theology here is that how is it a finished work if it's never actually finished? Many Christians are taught that salvation was secured on Calvary, that when Jesus said, "It is finished," the sin problem was solved, humanity was redeemed, and the gates of heaven were open. But then you're told he's coming back. Why? If salvation was truly accomplished, what is there left to save? Why return with vengeance, armies, judgment, and destruction? What does the second coming do that the first didn't? The hidden truth here is that the gospel isn't one story, it's two in tension. A first act of mercy, he came to save the world, and a second act of wrath, he's coming back to judge the world. But if the first act actually worked, there'd be no need for the second. This contradiction means one of two things. Either Jesus didn't finish what he came to do, or the threat of his return is meant to keep people in line. And that's not salvation. That's unfinished business weaponized as prophecy. This contradiction creates profound psychological instability in believers. You're told you've already been saved, but then just wait till he comes back. That creates a perpetual state of anticipation, insecurity, and dread. You're never safe, only conditionally tolerated. You're forgiven, but also waiting on judgment. You're loved, but only if you're still obedient when he gets back. You're saved, but also constantly warned not to slip up. This is the classic setup of spiritual anxiety disorder. You're never sure if you're safe, so you serve harder, believe stronger, and question less. It's not peace, it's a fear-induced performance loop with no exit. From a sociological lens, the second coming isn't just doctrine, it's leverage. It functions as a deadline. Get right before it's too late. A threat. You never know when he'll show up. A compliance mechanism. You better stay ready. The idea that Jesus is returning with fire and fury reshapes entire communities who begin to prioritize obedience over ethics, who begin to demonize outsiders and justify suffering, and even stalling progress by waiting on heaven instead of fixing earth. It replaces social responsibility with rapture escapism. And more importantly, it keeps people obedient to systems of power that claim to speak on behalf of the returning king. If Jesus already saved the world, then what exactly is he coming back to do? You don't come back to save what's already saved. You don't need wrath if grace was enough. You don't need judgment if mercy worked. So either he didn't finish or the church needs you to think he's coming back. So you stay afraid, stay obedient, and stay dependent. Let's tell the truth out loud. Jesus saved the world from himself, with himself, and if you don't say thank you the right way, he'll torment you forever. It's not morality, it's not grace, it's not freedom, it's a closed loop myth, a theological Ponzi scheme built on gaslit gratitude and fear-fueled loyalty. Love doesn't demand servitude. Freedom doesn't threaten with torment. Truth doesn't require worship. And any God who demands all three isn't a God worth serving. Listen, if you enjoyed today's conversation, there is literally plenty of more where this comes from. Check out some of the other videos on the screen, and until next time, keep rising.
And again, I don't have any affiliation with this guy. His channel just popped up, and I watched the video, and I liked what I heard. And I think, again, a lot of Christians should listen to this. And I know a lot of Christians will reject it, again, because their whole worldview is based in fear. If they go against their belief, they could lose their ticket to the eternal afterlife. And really, like I've said the whole time, you should really think about that whole premise. You're only really believing so that you can get a reward. You're not really believing to be a better person, uh, to do something positive for the world. You're believing for your own self gain. And realize, because of that promise, a lot of people go to church every Sunday and put money into the pastor's pocket. The church that just burned up in Memphis by the numbers, it was under a $25 million renovation. And I guarantee you go to that community in Memphis, that mega church where they could afford $25 million renovation. I guarantee you that community's broke as hell. And a big part of the reason they're broke is because all their money goes into the church. It's just like when I was in Buffalo, educating about why they did what they did at the Tops grocery store on Israel's 74th birthday. Remember, white supremacist equals 74 like Jewish. And again, the Bible is contrived as much of it is. It's obvious that the people in the start of that story are not the people who live in Israel today. It's a stolen identity. It's a whitewashed story. It is true white supremacy, and that's why in that black neighborhood they had the white supremacists shooting on Israel's 74th birthday, also synced up with the then 74-year-old O.J. Simpson, as we covered. Of course, O.J. Simpson brought about major racial feelings with the supposed murder story right after he got done acting in Naked Gun 33 1/3. But yeah, this man, Darante Lamar, former pastor and now a different kind of pastor, preaching secularism and what is wrong with his former faith and trying to wake other people up to the downside of religion. And I think we need a lot more people like him. Until we can get over a religious mindset, we're stuck in the mud. It's a huge part of the reason my work doesn't resonate with the majority of the populace. Almost everyone has a religious mindset. Evidence doesn't mean a thing to them. It's all about what they believe. Maybe they don't identify as Christians, but their belief system might be government, authority, news. That's their religion. That's their God. That's what controls their mind. Almost everybody is under the thumb of some authority, and that's a spell that needs to be broken. And a lot of these people who aren't Christian anymore, like yours truly, we were still raised in the belief system, especially here in the West and in the United States. I'm going to try opening the phone line again. We didn't have any calls after the last break. But again, I think that man's putting together powerful videos, and I hope his channel grows a whole bunch. And I do want to have a conversation with him about how he jumped all the way into the atheist boat. Because again, I think that's again, I don't think atheism's a whole lot different than religion. You're jumping into another boat that you can't prove. But the one thing about atheism is it doesn't really come with a whole lot of dogma. So in that way, you could say it's superior. All right, the line is open. It is that 509 number. If we don't have any religious people out there that want to call and share their feedback, I'm going to open the line up to anybody this time. Any thoughts you have on this man's videos? Do you like him? Would you like to see me do more streams where we talk about other people's content? We got a call here from 502, and let's see if our system's working tonight. What's up, 502? 502? 502,
Yeah,
Louis.
thank you, Zach.
Yeah, go ahead.
Zach, I'm here. Hold on, homie. Put you on pause. Okay. So just thinking back to the ancients and how intelligent they were, do you think that maybe the hieroglyphics was a way of not speaking or casting spells or using gematria and just using symbols for what they were trying to get across to the other human they were communicating with? Would be the alternative to what we do now when we, spell and cast words on each other.
I think it's possible. I don't have a definitive answer to that, but yeah, I think that's possible. Signs and symbols control the world, right? I didn't invent that phrase. You've heard that before. Signs and symbols control the world.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, they're just using symbols instead of, like, actual, like, 26 letter alphabet or whatever the alphabet is, and the vibrations with that and the spelling that we do to each other, casting spells on each other. I just thought I was trying to get your perspective on that. Okay, it might be something to look into. I don't know.
Okay.
Congratulations on your daughter, and I always watch your work every day. Thank you. And I am a Patreon.
Well, hey, thank you for not quitting. I appreciate it.
You got it, buddy.
All right. Have a good night.
Oh,
go ahead.
Do you have a thing? Do you have a thing coming up with the Pope or the Kentucky Derby? I live in Kentucky, and I'm here in Louisville. Are you going to continue with your Derby prediction?
Yeah, I did a lot of work on the Derby today. I'm going to begin presenting on the Derby tomorrow on the Patreon sports streams. I did a lot of grinding on the Kentucky Derby today, and of course you are. I saw you called from Louisville. I thought, how fitting. Days from the Derby, our first call from Louisville. Churchill Downs.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. That church. I've heard you talk about that before. And then the Pope, I think you might have done something with the previous Pope Benedict, but did you have something for this besides the thing going around now is Peter? Have you heard that theory, whatever?
Yeah, I have. I did several videos on the Pope. You must have missed them. There's several videos on the Pope. I was on it as the news broke.
I did. I watched it, but it wasn't definitive. Hey, I think this guy from Texas or the guy from New Jersey.
I didn't do any speculation. I didn't do any speculation on who the next Pope is. I need to look into who J.D. Vance met with the day before he met with the Pope. That could be the clue.
Okay. Yeah. Good looking.
All right.
All right, buddy. Keep going.
All right. Thanks, man. Take care.
Thank you.
And shout out to David, who cash apped $100. I appreciate that, David. I have a feeling David did that because he heard I said that we've lost over $500 in support since we launched the podcast. And I guarantee a lot of people who left, they didn't like me attacking the religion. It happens every time. Whenever I go on a rant against religion or flat earth, I lose a lot of support, and I'll never stop doing it. I mean, I'll never stop. Religion is a major problem. Flat earth, psyop is a major problem. And of course, the two go hand in hand because almost everyone caught up in that psyop is religious and misinterpreting Bible scripture. Which is... What's up, 313? 313, you're on.
Hey, Zach, how you doing?
Doing all right. I'm getting a lot of feedback through your thing. You might have the video playing in the background.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry about that. I got you on my feet. Sorry about that. But I just had to say something that way because I was listening to what the guy what he was talking about, and it's funny because when I was little and we were my parents they passed away, but they were, how do I put this in other words, we went to church every Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. And I'm not saying nothing wrong with that. But I feel like this because, the older you get, you started learning more, you start to learn, more about, religion and, how it plays out. So in other words, it's like this because it's, and this is the reason why all I know is the reason why I tell people all the time is that because I feel like that when you are conditioned to certain, when you go to church, because I've been in so many churches, and I feel like that, the guy when he was pointing out about far as when you question them, from my own personal experience, I do know this for a fact is that when you question them, they get mad and they will be so quick to shut you or say you're wrong and you're out of place or you're wrong. God is gonna do this or that. And I feel like that a lot of times. I feel like that they don't want you to question them because they feel like that they kind of feel like they're so superior, or because they have a divinity degree, or I'm a bishop or elder. And I feel like all I know is that my mother always told me, she said that the best thing to do is that you have to study, she used to always say, you have to study to show thyself approved. Because when you actually study the word, studying for yourself, you'll get more of an understanding and of how it is. Besides listening to people, because listening to people sometimes, and again, I'm not saying that you can't listen to people, but sometimes when you, what I was always taught, what you hear, it echoes in the mind and it goes in the heart, and they could be literally like teaching you something that's like literally false. Just like most people today, I think most people today that they don't keep the commandments. Just like over there, I believe it's in the. I believe it's over there in the book of, I believe it's Exodus, where it says about like thou shalt have no other God. So in other words, because just like a couple of weeks ago, right? Like I had a brother that was literally trying to tell me, well, man, I believe, I'm a what you call those people? Quran. And again, I'm not closed-minded, but I was like, okay, I understand like how like what you believe, because everybody has their own different what they believe, and I don't like to judge or condemn people, but I feel like that to me is that this religious stuff is that I feel like that what it does, that it to me personally, I feel like what it does, it literally ties you down. Because when you were saying something about like some weeks ago about like how people from the time from when we were like little to like 12th grade, how they have literally indoctrinated us like as far as education and like religion, because they don't want people thinking outside the box. They don't want you, because they want you to listen or hear, or to, like the brother was saying about far as, following this and doing this and doing that. So, and to me, it's kind of like a spell, where they literally got you underneath a spell. And that's one of the main reasons why I had to stop being religious, because that stuff, it literally ties you down. And I feel like that they don't have, I feel like this all of this. I feel like this, that they don't have no heaven to put you in. Just like the word says, it says judge, I believe it's called judge or be judged or something like that. But I'm just saying is that the point I'm trying to make is today is that people, a lot of people are conditioned to a system that will keep them tied down from knowing the truth. Because, like you always say, some people get mad, they want to get offended, get upset, this, that, whatever. And I just feel like that, the best way is to read it for yourself, besides listening to what elders or bishop or this person and that person, because they could be, and I'm not judging them, but in a way, they could be sending you to hell. Because I feel like this: if a man that's going to teach people about how to follow God, I feel like this. First things first, how you gonna lead people? How you gonna lead people? How you gonna lead? No. In other words, you can't lead people in the dark. You gotta tell people the truth, whether they want to hear it or not. So that's what I'm saying. Is because people just gotta just you gotta just read it, and once you start reading again, you get more understanding. Fine. And even in some cases, like you always say, look it up to understand it, and you can actually to define it. Even if you gotta, like you said, look up look it up and know what the true origins and where this stuff took place and where it originally came from. Because most people are not going to do that. Because like one thing too, like I tell people all the time, I said, look here, I said the information is out there. I said all you got to do is just look it up because it's out there. That's it. But most people, like you said, most people are closed-minded and they don't want to hear this. They say, oh, well, I got to go to church. Same old thing, but at the same time, they could be teaching you something that's false, and that's not true. It's like they sending you to hell. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, I appreciate you calling in and giving us your thoughts and feedback, and I resonate with a lot of what you said. So thank you.
Okay, Zach.
All right, you have a good night. Take care.
Take care.
Again, the ego. We attach our ego to things, and then we don't want to admit that those things were wrong, because then we have to tell ourselves that we were wrong. People don't want to hear that their sports game's rigged. They don't want to hear that their political party doesn't really care about them. They don't want to hear that their religion's false. Humility, not a lot of people have it. And yeah, it takes a level of courage to admit you're wrong too. It takes a level of honesty. And you don't see that religion really helps with these things. Just the opposite. Also, this idea of superiority because of your religion. Where's any evidence that you're superior because of your spiritual beliefs? Like I said, I played the video the other night of the guy who plagiarizes my work, literally copies me word for word, and tries to put it out and beg for money as he presents. And, I don't really care that he uses my work to try and pay his bills. The one thing I don't like that he does, though, is he also goes out of his way to slander me and say I'm a bad person because I don't have the spiritual belief as him. But you always hear his tone, just how weak he sounds, just how wimpy and emasculate he sounds. His recent video about how he has to take a break because he's just breaking down and he's losing his family and he's losing his mind. It's like, isn't that proof right there that his religion is bankrupt? Look at me, you guys. I've been here for going on 12 years. I've had to deal with some really messed up stuff. I guarantee you way more messed up stuff than he's had to deal with. He hasn't had threats against him and cars crashing through his house on Christmas Eve, people leaving dead animals at his house, weirdo stuff being sent to him in the mail, all the stuff I've had to deal with. And I have maintained the flow. And I didn't even bring up about how my business and house got sabotaged the one day that I couldn't do the work. You've never heard me come on and sound like some just weak, crushed little person, just barely hanging in there, crying as I end the video, begging for you to come bail me out of my problem. Never happened once. Where's any proof that these people are superior? Where's the proof? If anybody else wants to call in and add to the conversation, 509-560-4982 is the number. It's on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. 509-560-4982. I'd love to hear from some of the religious people who had a problem, people who've sent me emails in recent days. The woman who left a long comment about how I need to wake up and get with Jesus, or I won't be able to spend my life with my baby girl in the afterlife. The stuff you guys say is just crazy. It's crazy. You guys have such just like a fear-based, nonsensical mindset. It's sad. What's up, 647?
Hey, sorry, I'm watching on YouTube right now. I guess it's on a delay.
It is on a delay. It's about a 10-15 second delay. So you just want to talk through the phone and mute that video in the background.
Okay. I will pause it. Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
Okay. What's up, 647? For the next caller too, it's always the same for everybody. Yeah, when you call in, just be ready to go in real time. But go ahead, 647.
Yeah, yes, sir. Okay, Zach, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Riyadh. I called you back a couple months ago, I guess, when I first found you. I'm a moderator on the Archaics channel. Remember, I was showing you like the Archaics like prediction and stuff, and then that's
sure.
When
I do remember. You. Yeah, I do remember.
And I just want you to know, like, I've read your books, your 2 books, Number Games, Letters and Numbers, ever since. And, I annoy my girlfriend all the time because, like, I work from home and she's always here and I'm always, like, watching your live streams, like, literally every day. And one, I want to commend you for everything that you do and everything you talk about. And it's just undeniable. You know, I'm out here in Canada, and I even like learned to do my own decodes, and I've learned from you. And everything you talk about is just it comes true. Like every time, like with the date numerology, with the Gematria, the 4 base ciphers, like everything is just it's just crazy, and it's just.
And hold on, just for
I
the
don't know,
record,
out here in
I
Canada.
hold on, I got to interject. Not everything I say comes true, but I mean, usually we're not far off. And I was mentioning how I was sniffing a big power outage scenario somewhere around April 19th. And what do you know? It was yesterday, April 28th, 9 days later, that massive power outage in Europe perfectly synced with Cyber Polygon, which was my suspicion about April 19th. Again, Cyber Polygon happened on September 10th and 11th last year. If you guys don't know what Cyber Polygon is, it's the Jesuit World Economic Forum simulating power grids being taken out. Klaus Schwab said back in 2020 that there's going to be a cyber attack that's going to make COVID-19 seem like a small deal. And they were the same people simulating the COVID pandemic before it happened. But Cyber Polygon, it began on September 10th. That day can be written 10/9, like cyber attack equals 109. April 19th, that big Jesuit day, the 109th day of the year. I do imagine, like I said, I don't know if it's gonna be this year, but I think at some point I think when the one he's talking about, I bet you they do it on April 19th at some point in the future. Again, if you missed my work on what just happened with the blackout, it happened 167 days after the Superior General's birthday. Cyber Polygon equals 167. Go ahead.
Just to add on to that, so Mark Carney, who just won, I'm in Canada, right? So I'm in Ontario. Mark Carney, who just won the Canadian election, he's born March 16th, 1965, and our election was on Monday, April 28th, 2025, which is 43 days between, and Masonic equals 43, election equals 43, Freemasonry equals 43, occult ritual equals 43.
Hold on.
March 16th.
Hold on real quick. I'm guessing you missed my video on the election. That was the 45th Canadian election, 45 days after he was sworn in as prime minister, facing a 45-year-old Pierre. And from Pierre's birthday to the election was exactly 47 weeks and 47 days before Trump's birthday. And the election was about Trump. It's Trump's tariffs that forced this issue. It shows that the two nations are under the same thing. 45 and 47, those are Trump's presidential numbers. And not to mention tariffs has the gematria 47 like Trump. But again, both of our nations are controlled by the same Masonic Jesuit forces. And again, Trudeau, I pointed that out yesterday. I said Trudeau's Jesuit, Carney's Jesuit. Pierre might be Catholic, but he's not Jesuit educated. And again, it is Carney who's the winner. And notice he's 60 years old. He's threatened to take on Trump. Donald Trump, 60, who just won the 60th election after his wife fell down the stairs and died 60 weeks into the first Jesuit nation year on the day he said he'd run the election. Again, all of this stuff is perfectly contrived ritual, and they got their perfect pawns on the chessboard. Mark Carney and Donald Trump, for example. Go ahead.
Exactly, and it's just sad. Like I go on my Facebook today, on my Instagram, and everyone's crying about like the election being lost or got stolen or whatever. Because a lot of people here, like they're sick of the liberals. Like that is true, but like they don't get that like it's all just pre-contrived and ritualized, and it's hard to explain this kind of thing to people.
Well, actually, it should be simple though, right? Because what they were saying is Pierre's campaign was almost impossible. His campaign didn't make any sense. Because since the tariffs have become an issue, he's refused to talk about them. And I was pointing this out in the video I just did. I said, see, they're sick of the Liberal Party, but now it's the Liberals saying they're going to do something about the tariffs, whereas the conservative guy is just staying mum on it. Like, in what world, if you're trying to win the election, does it make sense to stay mum on the issue of the day? This reminds me of 2004 when Bush and Kerry were running against each other in the U.S., these two members of Skull and Bones. And I would just sit there and think, this Kerry guy is running to lose. How do you lose to this Bush guy in these debates? How do you not challenge him on certain issues that you stay mum on? This guy can't even formulate a sentence, and you're letting it look like the debate is 50-50. I mean, again, all of these things are horribly rigged and really impossible if you have a brain. So, yeah, I was just reading about the election, and they're saying the mistake Pierre's making is he's not addressing the tariffs. Like, how could you possibly make that mistake if you want to win the election? Anyway, go ahead.
No, you nailed it, man. And I just want you to know, I learn a lot from you every day, and I My girlfriend, she's Judeo-Christian, and I try to wake her up to all the things you're talking about, and it's slowly working, But I appreciate everything you do, and I learn from you every day.
All right. Well, I appreciate the call. You have a good night.
All
right, take care.
You too, bro. Peace.
Now, David says he's trying to call in, and I'd like you guys to leave the floor open for David, because David donated $100 during this stream. Thank you very much, David. I don't, like I said, I set a goal for 10 people to donate $2. So I do appreciate your generosity, and I always say when people make a donation, if you ever need it back, you know where to shoot an email to. Yeah, go ahead and call in, David. The line is open. I'm looking for the 346 since you said that's your area code. Well, I don't think he's calling in from unknown. We're gonna close out unknown. We'll stand by for 346. Here we go. All right, how you doing, David? Thank you so much for your generosity. You're on the line.
Hello, hey Zach. No problem, man. I know that you've been, I told my family about the guy that talks about Gematria on YouTube and on Spotify, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Like, no one that I speak to nowadays wants to even hear this perspective that numbers have energy and that they affect the reality that we live in." And you've been doing this shit for so long, and I just wanted to say that, that's why I don't have much money, but this is something that I want to give you because, it's not easy. I can't even imagine doing this for 10 plus years with people constantly bashing you and making you feel like, you're doing this for nothing. You stay strong, and I appreciate that, like a lot of us do, because you try to wake people up. Even if you don't have the full truth yourself, you have the literal matrix right in front of you. And you've been, taking advantage of it like anyone else should. But yeah, it's been really interesting to see how you've, maintained at least a little bit of income through, Gematria and breaking down the code in NBA games and on football games and on, all these things. And I tell my family, if his work wasn't true, he wouldn't be doing it every day, putting out 7 clips, 7, episodes a day. For a period of time, you were the one person I was listening to at work, and the amount of knowledge that you were just, there were some things that you were saying that I didn't completely agree with, which is completely fine. Everyone's allowed to have their opinions. But, and even some people that I tell them, listen to this. They're like, oh, he's reaching a little bit. I'm like, yeah, but out of like 10 statements he just said, he might be reaching on 2 of them. You are spot on some things. And I'm like, the number, like you just said, oh, people think I'm just, everything sums up to this number. No. There's a specific network. I don't know how it works. I don't know how the ordinal, how the reverse. I don't know how that, why it changes and why it doesn't stay the same for some correlations. But I wanted to talk about the video. That's my rant on that. I want to talk about the video you showed about the guy. I only saw the second video. I wanted to hear your thoughts on some of the statements he said. He said a lot of things. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on some of the things that he brought up when it comes to at least we have to, according to the way the Bible is now written, that we have to stay as subordinates under God, that we have to follow everything God says, or else we will be punished, or we will be, sent to hell. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have very similar thoughts to what he said. And for anyone who's ever listened to me over the years, I'm essentially expressing the same points he's making. He's just articulating it better. Again, the Bible is unclear. That is why there are so many denominations that have different beliefs. That is the first major problem. If God wants people to understand morality and what's God's will and what we should be doing, It should be crystal clear to everyone. And again, it's God. God can do whatever he wants. Why doesn't God just put his undeniable truths in the sky so that we can see at all times? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
literally, why not? Like he said,
Yeah.
why is it that we have to believe a story from thousands of years ago? Why don't we get a more current story that's just undeniable? Is it some kind of game? Like, I'm going to see if you're going to believe this, because if not, eternal hellfire. All of this is so
Yeah.
silly. And the point he's making, too, about, if you believe in Jesus, you're saved, but he's going to return at some time, and there's going to be judgment to find out who's really saved. There's
Yeah.
so many
It's
contradictions
very
in the Bible.
confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. And I'm only 21, and trying to understand God's word it's a struggle, because not only because it's already so odd and it's so unclear, but it's because there's so many distractions in our lives. Like, example, everything that the people in power are doing to just distract everyone. And they do it through little rituals that, take energy away from people. So these little distractions that are in everyone's lives, and you come here and decode them, and you're like, hey, they're doing this on purpose. You may think that you have an option in these things, but there's someone constantly playing around and changing everything to however they want it to come out. And so when growing up, the main question is, are there people who are doing this? Or is it like, how is it that this web is so perfectly knitted that, like, random news, random deaths that seem random, people's lives, people's like names matching to their birthdays, matching to the amount of days until their death. It's like there's no way this is being done by physical people with physical capabilities. It's like, what are your thoughts on that? Because that's where spirituality comes in. It's like, you show the facts, you show the numbers.
I agree.
But it's like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree. And that's why the gentleman who I was playing, who's a former pastor who's gone all the way atheist and essentially rejecting everything spiritual, I think that's a mistake. And I think what we do expose is that there is spirituality is a real thing, and there is a form of sorcery and real magic. And that's why we see what we see in a lot of our fellow man seemingly being under a spell. God, it's late, so I cannot think of his last name right now, but I've told this story before.
Yeah,
there's a former Seattle Seahawk. His sister is a supporter of this community. She's been around for about 10 years now, and she says that it seemed like it was something spiritual that took her brother's life, because he became ill so quickly and he just died. And he died on a very curious date. He died on September 27th, the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by the Roman Catholic Church. And the number that he wore for the Seahawks was 56, that very important number to the Jesuits. I always think of her story. Again, I mean, when these people are signing their contracts to make this big money and play in the NFL, are they really somehow signing their lives away? Are they putting their soul on the line that can be collected through some kind of wicked Kabbalistic dark half of the tree of life magic? I don't have all the answers to this question, but all I have is the evidence and information I've looked at so far. People will say, well, if all that can be done, isn't that proof that Jesus is the truth? And I say, no, that's not proof that Jesus is the truth. It's proof that there is some kind of spiritual energy, and potentially this energy can even be used to take lives. It still doesn't prove that Jesus and this story is the truth, though. To me, all it says is, again, this is why you should live by the golden rule. This is why you should just make your life about things that are righteous, which we all know what's righteous. We know it's good to help out other people. We know it's good to be truthful and not lie and be dishonest. We know it's good to live a life of service and help those in need, et cetera, et cetera. It's really pretty simple. I've always felt that if I live that kind of life, if there really is something like heaven and hell, I can't imagine that Creator sends you to the eternal afterlife of hell. If you lived a righteous life and you went out of your way again and again to help out other people and do what was right. And honestly, if you get sent to hell by this creator because you didn't believe in the exact story in a book, in a way, let the pieces fall where they may then, because maybe this thing of heaven, if this is true that you have to believe in this story and this to get in this eternal afterlife of heaven, not to mention, even in Revelation, doesn't it reveal that war's going on in heaven? Maybe heaven's not all that it's cracked up to be. It sounds like there's a war going on up there. Again, but I don't even like to go down the road of what I don't know. All I like to say is, just imagine if everybody was living by the golden rule and being about more than themselves and helping out other people. The world would be a much better place. It's just easily understood. That's why people should act and behave that way. And by the way, David, I did hear you say you're only 21 and you don't have a lot of money. If you end up realizing that you need this $100 back, please do reach back out to me as well. I do appreciate your generosity, and I accept your gift. But again, I've had people make donations before, and then they found themselves in a tough spot that they didn't expect. Please, if you ever need that money back, you just let me know.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you again for sharing your thoughts. And yeah, like all these questions there, everyone has asked them. Believing in Jesus, believing in Allah, believing in Buddha, believing in whatever. Everyone's had these questions. But it's once you go to each scripture for each book, for each religion, that you start finding answers. But the thing is that, the truth that we've all found out is that that's not reliable anymore, because even the books of Allah have been changed. The books of the Bible have been changed. There's so many versions, but the things that haven't changed have been the messages, the hidden messages, the ones that we know, that we all know, listening right now, the hidden messages that have been put there on purpose. And these messages were put there inside the Bible, inside of stories, inside of parables, with numerical values, with numerical prophecies, connecting all the way back to the Old Testament. I agree with a lot of the things you say, the same way that a lot of people in the community do. There's a lot of questions out there. And I feel that because there's so many questions out there, we shouldn't close our mind to our human perspective, even our human reality. To put God and to fit God into our little box, it's like fucking putting a crocodile. Say, this crocodile is not what it is. So I'm just going to put it into this little container and say, this is what a crocodile is. So knowing that there's something bigger, this crocodile is something bigger than this one thing I'm making it to be. Because if it wasn't so big, there wouldn't have been people who have died for this cause. If it wasn't so big, there wouldn't have been people who have literally been, persecuted in the same way that every other religion has had the same people. And now we have to the question of why believe in this God that these Jesuits, these Catholics, have killed people for and persecuted them for? They've erased civilizations for the purpose of what? And then that's when we figure out they're not working from God. They're not of God. So you say, there's bad things happening. These people do these evil magic through this code. Where was this code from? It was from the land of Israel. They took it from the Israelites. The Crusades took their knowledge and then they started applying it. And a lot of things changed after that time. Why did they want to kill the kids in those Jewish towns? Why did the Roman emperor want to kill those kids around that time specifically? There's things that you can't just ignore that are history. And that's why we got to keep asking questions. But now this age of awakeness, this age of Aquarius, what we call it, is calling us to see deeper in the numbers. And so Jesus has put Gematria codes in those parables as well. And that's up to us now to go in and study it. Because Jesus himself was a Kabbalist. They have ranks as well. And Jesus was the master Kabbalist. He studied in Egypt. He studied all around the Middle East. He learned from all these other religions the same way that we should. He told us, you are supposed to seek from all the other places, because you can't just receive source from one place and that's it. No, there's things that are outside of our awareness that still apply to our spirituality, regardless of our dogmas, regardless of what we actually, say we follow. Things exist outside of our reality. Just because I say that dogs don't exist because I've never seen one doesn't mean a fucking dog doesn't exist. So I like the questions we ask, because, like Jesus says, we're supposed to be like children. Ask questions all the time. So God doesn't, like the guy said in the video, if you question, you are banished. You are not allowed to question. Yes, question. Ask all the questions. We're supposed to, because that's why Jesus spoke in parables, so people could question, what the fuck is this dude talking about? Because the messages Jesus gave were not easy to understand, and everyone knows this. But when you go deep into it and you see, oh, this has correlation with Hermeticism, this has correlation with ancient spiritualism that has been practiced for longer than we ever thought. Where does this come from? Why is this man talking about it when it has been spoken about this for thousands of years? And then this knowledge of Kabbalah went away completely because people were being persecuted for it. And then it came up again in the 1600s in the Iberian Peninsula. And then from there, it spread around the world again. And it's happening for a reason. And it's not a small purpose, because if evil entities are working against us and killing people and doing these sacrifices of death and rituals that are evil, then something good has to exist as well, because the universe is all yin yang. It's a balance between light and darkness. If there's darkness, there's also light. So when you read all these stories and you say people die, when I look at my phone, it says, oh, someone else died. For me, notifications. This person died at this age. This person died. I'm like, damn, a lot of deaths. That's a lot of rituals. But that doesn't make me scared like it used to. It makes me hopeful, because where that evil is coming from, there is even greater good that's going to come from. That's what not even my belief, my spirituality says. There's an exchange of energy constantly. And so, yes, all these things are happening to us. Yes, these people have taken control, or so they think. But that's when not even religion, the relationship with God comes in. And that's when a lot of people are going to back away, because they're like, I don't want to have to believe in this. And that's when I say, it's not up to you for it to exist. It's not up to you for this code to be real and for it to work. And that even if you apply it to your own life, it will change your life dramatically. And people have started to do it, and people have started to realize Gematria is powerful. It is the way God has coded everything. It is the manifestation of everything. This is something I've been telling people about. I'll stop with this, and I'll let you speak. I appreciate you for not interrupting me. God says in the Bible, it says that we were created in God's image. Everyone's gonna say, "Oh, Elohim is plural; it's a singular." I don't care. Us as humans, we have thought, individual thoughts, conscious thoughts. With that thought comes an intent. And when you connect thought and intent with an action, I believe that's magic. I believe that's the Holy Trinity. I believe that's what God is inside of us means. That when we have God, the Holy Spirit, and we manifest those two, through the action which is Jesus Christ. Through Jesus, everything is. And God was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. That's what that means. The action Jesus is. When you see Pink Floyd, the prism, that's Jesus. The rainbow coming out of the prism, that's the Holy Spirit. The pure light coming into the prism, that's God. But people are so stuck in their ways, and they want to do the things they want to do, and they don't want to be separated from this. They say that they want to worship God, but they speak with a bad mouth. I have done it. I just did it. I cussed. I guess that's to be more relatable to everyone. I don't know. But God is calling us to wake up. And Gematria is one of the first steps. Because through this is when we start, like back tracing everything. We can start breaking down the code that is deep into Exodus, that is deep into Proverbs, into the Psalms. We can actually start going deep into these books for the next few years and find out what God's divinity actually is. Because you cannot taint that. Because that's code, and we know that. You cannot change the code if it's written in a whole other language. Like we know this. If it's in a whole other language, backed up by a whole other system, which is the Hebrew, or the Greek Gematria. So it's like, we cannot deny that this is magic. We cannot deny this how the universe works. But we have to start doing something about it now. Because their magic works does not mean that ours cannot. This is what the power of your podcast has. And now you have a beautiful daughter. And we're all so happy for you.
Thank you.
I myself am not a father, but I've seen enough fathers who've gone through the same issues with the newborn. My brother has the same issue right now. Following his faith and following what he believes in, but then having to deal with everything else around him. Life just distracts us. Money is one of those things. But when we say, my belief is when I say, God, I cannot do this by myself. I will put this in your hands. You take care. That's magic. Quantum physics, more information about quantum physics is coming out. And it proves that this is how the universe works. This is how connection with God works. I say, God, I put this situation in my hands. In your hands, sorry. I put this situation in your hands because I cannot do this by myself. I've tried and tried and tried, and I cannot do this by myself. I need you, God, to help me. And that's the surrender that the dude was talking about, that a lot of people don't want to do. But we belong to him. We are his creation. And now, yes, say him, say it, say universe. God doesn't have a sex. God is masculine and feminine. God is creation and destruction. Like the guy was saying, yes, that's true. Because God is. And we can get into the topic of what has got a lot of bad things to happen. But those are not the things that we're supposed to be worrying about, because we are literally learning about codifying numbers into words and how that kills people. So, like sometimes we have these trivial topics that we talk about.
Just for the record, the name just came to me of the football player's mouth, Joe Tofmer. He died September 27th, 2011. His sister Mary has called into this community a number of times back when I had TFR. And again, she says it seemed almost magical the way her brother just got so sick out of nowhere and passed. And some people say, well, how do you know she's not one of them? She's just trying to mislead you. I don't know that at the end of the day, but she's always seemed very sincere in the way she explained what happened to her brother. So,
like, why would you hide that stuff? Why would you say, oh, my brother just got sick out of nowhere and he died? Like, that's not normal. That doesn't happen. Especially for a football player, someone who is known to have good energy, stamina, to have good health. Like, so these are the things that people are not realizing. Shit's happening. Like my girlfriend says, shit's hitting the fan. and we have to start being like, yo, this shit's not, it's not normal for people to just start dropping dead like flies, like it's nothing, like, and their deaths to be pairing with the connection with the Pope. Like, what is this? Why is this a connection? Why is their name codified into their death?
And I
Why
always
are
remind
people
people
famous?
just the phrases we know in society. Your days are numbered. Your number is up.
Mm-hmm.
Where do these phrases come from?
Can you please tell me? I don't know.
Hey, again, you learn about this knowledge, it all starts to make a bit more sense. A lot of things that
Yeah.
you hear in society and you don't really think about it. The sports announcers are always saying they couldn't have scripted it any better. Again, these unbelievable
Yeah.
scripts every night. Yesterday, before the Cavs closed out the Heat, sweeping them, we knew the game was about Trump. We've been showing for years how they sync up the sports games with the Oval Office. Again, anyone can go back and watch my video from November 4th, 2024, the night before the rig selection of Trump. We said it was absolutely in the bag for him based on what they did with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Trump, who had his convention in
Yeah.
Cleveland in 2016 and comes back as the new Grover Cleveland, the second split-term president. Remember, the Cavs got off to their best start in 48 years, starting the year 8-0 the night before the election when Cleveland equals 48, Donald Trump equals 48, Grover Cleveland equals 80, like 8-0. We saw that if the Heat got swept by the Cavs in the opening round of the playoffs, they'd stay on 80 wins versus the Cavs all time. And they closed them out 47 days before number 47's birthday when Ohio equals 47, but they won with 138 points. And they became the 159th team in the NBA history to win a series after starting the series 3-0. Donald Trump equals 138 when you run the alphabetic order forwards, 159 when you run it in reverse. That is an absolutely perfect ritual. And then they also blew out the Heat by 55 points in their 55th season. Remember, Satan equals 55 when you run it forwards, 80 when you run it in reverse. The highest degree of the Church of Satan is mega, what Trump runs on. And again, I mean, just the perfect ritualism, the same number patterns we brought up so many times over the last decade with Trump, sports, and him. And again, the announcers
And you know
are
what
blurting
the
out.
crazy thing is, man?
Go ahead.
And the crazy thing is, Mega, that is a female witch. The female priest witch, you know?
Sure.
So the crazy thing about that, because a MAGA so my goal would be a male, and my guy would be a female.
Megas.
I looked that up
male,
because
right?
I heard you
Megas
say
is
that one
male.
time.
Mega for the female. And by the way, Trump's
Megas?
wife just turned 55 years old on April 26th, for the record.
Man, like that's crazy. So, you know, the United States, and I was gonna talk about this too. There's something called the three-state empire, or this three-city empire, and it is composed of the District of Columbia, London, and the Vatican. It is an empire that is controlled through London economically, through the United States militarily, and through the Vatican spiritually, that controls, you know, the whole web. So this is how they've been connected, and, you know, London and France are not, you know, unknown to each other. That's the connection with the Jesuits. Yeah. And so we haven't been free from London. We haven't been free from, like, we've been doing alliances with France for a long time. So people saying that, you know, they deny the truth of this new knowledge, which is not new, it's just coming out again. But yeah, man, it's a lot, and people don't want to realize it. They want to just stay distracted and still believe that they have an opinion, or that there's something that they might win a football game because a player got put on, or a player got this. Like, it doesn't matter. It's already scripted. It's already been chosen, and so yeah, I appreciate you for listening to me, and thank you for all the content you've been making and for staying consistent, even though you've been struggling recently.
Well, I appreciate it,
you
David.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And
I'll let the next call on. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I appreciate your call. You have a good night. You take care.
Yes, sir.
I saw Marty in the chat left the Mark Twain quote. Religion was invented when the first con man met the first fool. And again, I mean, you look at religion, it is full of con men and it is full of fools and very gullible people and people that just want to be part of the herd. And again, tell me where the difference is between the people who believe in these other authorities, whether your authorities, religion or government or media. There's really not a difference. And for some people, it is all three. All right. If anybody else would like to call in, make it now. I got to wrap this up. And tonight's going to be a late night for me because my new routine is I stay up and finish all the sports stuff for tomorrow. Because Wednesday with baseball season, the games start early. And if I don't get it done now, Wednesday is the hardest day of the week for me, man. I got to get the sports stuff done. I got to take care of a little girl in the morning. That's what I'm going to do in the middle of the night. Yeah, if you want to phone in, now's the time or forever hold your peace. Again, it is at 509-560-4982. Number 509-560-4982. We'll see what the result is tomorrow. Are we going to lose another big chunk of subs because people are just so annoyed with the attacks on religion? Or are we going to gain some of these people back because they finally are seeing the light? What's up, 510?
Hello?
Hello?
There we go. Yeah, I cut off for a second. Now, I was just calling in about the Steelers picking this quarterback out of Ohio State, 21 years after picking another quarterback from Ohio. You see any little things going on with that one? The dude, Will Howard from Ohio State that we picked up. Isn't that kind of...
Well, it reminds that they had the 21st pick of the draft, and Jesuit equals 21, and they're owned by the Jesuit Rooney family, and the 21st pick of the draft's mother died right after he was drafted, and 38 weeks after his birthday, when death, murder, killing, and RIP are 38. And maybe he was an Oregon Duck. I don't know. Maybe there's something about Oregon and Ohio State. That was the first ever men's college basketball tournament. The Oregon, back then they were the Webfoots, not the Ducks. The Oregon Webfoots beat Ohio State in the first college basketball championship. Other than that, I don't know. I'd have to look into it. Way off topic though, 510. Way off topic.
I know. I'm sorry, Zach. I'm sorry. I just missed. I fell asleep at sports talk this morning. I don't know what happened, but I just didn't want this to lose my train of thought. I'm sorry being off topic. That's all. I'm gonna take my.
All right,
thanks for
man.
taking my call, though, Zach.
All right. All right. Take care. Yeah, it's tragic too, just how this stuff goes on year after year. You think this is the kind of stuff Christians would be speaking out about? You think more Christians would be like, you know what? I didn't necessarily agree with Zach's spiritual viewpoints, but man, this stuff he's shown about these sports leagues is wicked. I need to get my flock to know about this because I got a lot of people going to the games. I'm going to the games myself. I need to stop going to the games. I don't see many Christians anywhere talking about wicked stuff going on. I see a lot of people saying that God brought Donald Trump back to office, and it was God who saved him on July 13th, 2024. And again, that's where I've always said, you show me a religious person, I'll show you a fool. 99 out of 100 times. You had to be a fool to fall for the Donald Trump hoax on July 13th. You got to be an even bigger fool to think God had anything to do with that. And again, these people aren't looking for answers. They're just believing what the authorities told them. If they were actually out there truth-seeking, they would have found out what we found out a long time ago. How many years have we been talking about Trump and Obama's ritual on the 45th birthday of the Church of Satan? On the East Coast, you've already crossed over onto it, but it was found out here on the West Coast in 42 minutes. It's 11:18 out here on the West Coast. In 42 minutes, it's going to be the Church of Satan's 59th birthday. And we talked about how Pope Francis, the 9 days of mourning, concludes on the Church of Satan's 59th birthday when Pope Francis equals 59 and Benedict stepped down on the 59th day of the year and they synced up the 59th election. Where Joe Biden was number 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday, and Catholic equals 46 like religion. RIP JFK at 46. Again, Anton LaVey died in a major ritual sync with the Pope. Jesuit numbers all over it. Again, it goes back to what Martin Luther said about, the Catholic Church controlling both sides of the coin. They need people committing sin and evil so that they can tax them with indulgences. They need the Church of Satan because it's going to make some people flock to Jesus. They know that if they play both sides of the field, they're going to catch more people in their net. And yeah, anyway, if we don't have more calls, I think we can leave it there. We're well over the 2-hour mark. And like I said, I got a few hours of work ahead of me, so I'll get started on that. The only thing around here that pays the bills is doing the sports. And it honestly, man, it seems like the more I do the news, the harder I work. Always the support goes down. Like I said, we did the cross-country trip from Seattle to New York, uniting truth seekers and all the major cities in between in the build-up to September 11th. And that was a lot of hard work. Almost no sleep for 2 weeks, drive myself both ways, speak in each city. And literally for that, major financial punishment. Revenue cut directly in half not long after that trip concluded. And that's why, I am flirting with the idea, honestly, you guys, of only covering sports and just making the nightly show just all about sports. Again, through the sports, you can connect what's going on in the world because they're syncing up the sports with the news and the rigged politics. So if you just cover it from a sports angle, you're still hitting all the topics. And as someone who does want to build resources for this movement, I know what brings in the resources. Sports, not really anything else. Covering the news, there's no real financial support for that. It's like the charitable part of the work I do. So yeah, you could see that change. You could see this become a full-time sports thing. And again, sports motivates people to learn the knowledge because it's lucrative, and people care about sports a lot more than they do care about news. You know, look at the men of this nation over the weekend, man. Woo! Almost every man in the country was talking about Deion Sanders' son falling to the 144th pick of the draft. He got chosen at 144. Most people didn't get the biblical joke or realize that Deion Sanders' birthday leaves 144 days left in the year. And again, we've been talking about Cleveland in 78 all year. Cleveland equals 78. The Chumps back at age 78 is the new Grover Cleveland. 78's just been absolutely crushing in sports with nonstop 78 rituals with all the Cleveland teams. And Deion Sanders' son gets drafted 78 days after his birthday by Cleveland, and next year will be their 78th season as an NFL franchise. John Mendoza with the big generosity again said, lighthouses are more useful than churches. Benjamin Franklin. Indeed. All right. John Mendoza and Open Up, the usual suspects. Thank you both again. And shout out to David with the big donation tonight on Cash App. The young guy with not a lot to his name. It almost makes me feel bad. Again, you guys, I really do prefer smaller donations, especially if you're struggling as so many people are. I like I always say, I don't know why there's not 1 million people here pledging $1 a month so we can make everything happen that needs to happen, like a GematriaEffectNews full-time studio in every major city. Just imagine had that happened a long time ago. Imagine GematriaEffectNews had major studios and it had been going for, since I started saying that about 6 years ago. We might have shut down the scandemic before it could even happen, And I don't think that's facetious. I think that's factual. Just imagine it. Our message is powerful. We've woken up a lot of people. I talk about we because there are some other people in this community who helped out. When I was out on the streets speaking out for 100 straight days before they came out with the pokey-dokes about why you better not do it, it did motivate other people to get out with megaphones on their corner and do the same thing in their community. Again, just imagine in every major city, full-time GematriaEffectNews studios, motivating people, getting out the word in a way higher level with better production, better speakers. Just imagine. And again, it's a damn shame because I told you guys all a decade ago too, when I did the message 2015, that was one of my videos. I said, if people don't wake up and aren't seeing 2020 by the year 2020, they got major plans for that year. That'll be the next year, the next major thing on the world, the next type of 9/11. I said, expect quality of life to be going down drastically. Expect life to get a lot more expensive. Check. Imagine had these things not been executed and not pulled off. Your food might not cost a fortune right now. and everything else going up in price. $1 a month. Imagine you'd pledged $1 a month from when I launched this in September of 2018. Let me think. How many months is that? Because here we are in April of 2025. So 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. That's 6 times 72. And then you would have done a few months in 2019. You'd have pledged a little more than $80 right now. My guess is the average person is spending $80 extra almost every single time they go to the grocery store right now. And again, that's my point. If people fail to get behind the right leaders and the right movements, again, you become part of the problem. And there's only a few people, I would say, on the world stage that could ever possibly count right now as the right leaders with the right movement. And I don't feel the least bit bad or arrogant in saying that yours truly has clearly been one. I've been here every day. I've been right on point about what's going on, what's coming down the pipe. Again, I rushed out a book and gave it out for free for anyone who wanted it in the middle of 2020, saying exactly when they would wind down the scandemic and why you better stay away from those pokey-dokes. Dead on, dead on. Some of the best predictions ever made at any point ever in history. And again, hardly anyone's read the book. That's what's also a tragedy. A lot of people, there's more people in the dirt right now from taking the pokey-dokes than read the book by a huge margin. Here, we'll take one more call and then we'll wrap it up. 587.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Zach. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, you're on.
I'm good. I'm going to take you off topic just a bit and focus on the Canadian election.
Okay.
If it's all sophisticated theater, then where exactly does your scrutiny lie when you criticize Pierre P. for remaining mum about the tariffs?
I don't understand. I don't understand your question.
Well, if it's all sophisticated theater, I remember earlier in the show you were criticizing him for being silent.
Well, I wasn't criticizing. I was saying that's the script, right? That's what created the scenario where the Liberals could stay in power, right? Because Canada overwhelmingly is sick of the Liberal Party and their policies and what it's done to Canada. But now it's the Liberal Party who's arguing against Trump and saying they're going to do something about it, whereas the other guy, Pierre, acted like nothing's happening. I said that's all part of the theater to make it seem possible for why the Liberal Party could stay in power. That's the point I was making.
Okay, gotcha. That's it, I think.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, bye.
All right, take care. And that's the thing too. I mean, sometimes I even watch my own videos back and I'm like, I didn't exactly say that in the most clear way, but I thought I was articulating that point when I compared it to John Kerry versus George Bush and how he didn't confront Bush on things that were just logical to confront him on and just, let George Bush stumble over words and struggle with sentences. Like if I was up on the stage, I'd be like, do you guys really think this is a leader right here? This man can hardly even speak. Do you feel like this represents America? This guy born into power? Does this look like King George over here? I'd be bringing up the same things I was bringing up as a kid. Was he even fairly elected in 2000? Or did it come down to the state where his brother was the 43rd governor and then he just happened to be number 43 and their daddy was the 43rd vice president? Of course, he's not going to say any of that. He's part of the same secret society, Skull and Bones, that they were in. But again, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that should have happened to Bush and get American people thinking, oh yeah, is this guy part of some regime? Was he falsely installed? Has our nation been hijacked? Is it an accident that this crazy thing, 9/11, happened shortly after he got into office? Is it a coincidence we're back in Iraq where his dad was when he was president? Isn't it ironic that he said his dad's biggest mistake was going into Iraq and now he's the president and we're going into Iraq? Again, I mean, yeah, it is political theater. And that's why these people never say the right things and they're all full of shit and they're all hypocrites and they all lie about their campaign promises, Trump says he's going to come in and fix the economy and then brings in tariffs. And we know what he's done with the tariffs. Again, tariffs equals 47 like Trump. Implemented the first tariffs of this administration 47 months after he implemented the tariffs in his first administration, which weren't nearly as drastic, but also did it exactly 47 weeks after the anniversary of the publishing of Wealth of Nations. Again, the book that is credited to the father of economics, who spent a huge portion of that book talking about why tariffs are destructive to nations. And then he also brought those tariffs exactly 47 weeks after the publishing of Wealth of Nations on the 47th day of the Pope's age. Reminding you who really runs the show. And as we know, Klaus Schwab, the Pope's Jesuit buddy, he stepped down the same day. And again, Trump's friends with Klaus Schwab. He's part of the Jesuit fraternity, having attended Fordham. And it was Klaus Schwab who said by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. We said back then in 2020 when he said that, he said, how are they going to achieve this? How are they going to achieve by 2030 you'll own nothing and be happy? I still feel that that's a bit far-fetched and drastic, but it remains to be seen. They got 5 more years. They figured out ways to make things crazy expensive through weather warfare, which I speculated on back then. All these fires and floods have drastically increased insurance costs everywhere. To own a commercial property, you have to pay insane insurance right now, meaning that almost nobody can afford to have a commercial property. And I wish I would have known how much. Again, I in a way, you could argue I made the mistake of buying a commercial property, and it is for the future idea of having a news studio and a team. Right now, it's a building rented out to a barbershop and some other small businesses in the area. But when I bought it, looking at the statements for the previous owner, he was grandfathered in at the time at what the insurance rate was. He was paying $2,000 a year in insurance for the building. When I got the building, the best quote I could get for insurance was right at about $10,000 a year, which is extremely expensive, and it's not uncommon. And these are all the kinds of things going on right now. And part of me wonders if it's all about just like putting out mom and pops all over the place that's out of business so that Amazon, I imagine at some point it's going to merge into Amazon Osco Mart, Amazon, Walmart, and Costco, all one big business. They do all of our shipping for us, deliveries, the one-stop shop. Yeah, you just see the direction of things. Drone delivery. Pretty soon your Amazon package will be to you faster than ever because a drone's just going to take it straight from the warehouse. Who even needs a person to deliver it for anyone who's still left remaining after the next round of clot shots? Yeah, anyhow, a lot of obstacles. It's a harder time than ever to get people to support the cause because everybody's hurting. But like I said, man, you continue to not support at the rate of $1 a month. Again, good luck on watching anything ever change for the better. And here's the one other thing I'd say about why you should be supporting this movement. Don't forget who was out in front of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation when the whole scandemic went down. We were out there all weekend in the cold and in the rain, March 13th, March 14th, March 15th, March 16th. I was out in Seattle every day. And again, we were educating about Event 201 and what Bill Gates had said and what was to come, and we were right on about all of it. And again, more people behind this movement, more resources would have had an even bigger impact. But hey, don't forget, that was the weekend that Event 201 did go viral on Twitter, and I think we had something to do with that. We did gather quite a few people out there. And yeah, I did also spend $2,500 out of my own pocket to give away 50 hoodies. That got people to come out. And a lot of people never came out again after they got their free hoodie, which was quite disappointing. Again, we have more people supporting. We can do more free giveaways and get more big crowds or bigger crowds to try and have an impact. But I'm also at the point now where it's just like, God. Like I said, is it time to just throw in the towel on this and just focus on the sports and do what will bring in the resources? And if we can get that to take off in the way it should, come back and make the news thing happen, or I don't know. I mean, we've proven so much, and it's 2025, and still, and actually, to show for it, we have a smaller audience and smaller viewership than ever by drastic margins, which is also drastic. But one way or another, I still convince myself to come back each day and speak out about the tyranny. So Shout out to Chris. He says 31-year drought could end with Toronto Maple Leafs goalie Anthony Stolarz, who is 31 years old. Yeah. Again, Canada hasn't won the Stanley Cup since '93. They did have a lockout season where they missed a Stanley Cup. It's been 32 years since '93, like America's 32. America's had the 32-year reign over Canada in the Stanley Cup. Spaceman says he's there for the next time. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie though. It's hard. It's gonna be hard for me to do any pavement pounding anytime soon with the little one. But yeah. Shout out to Rick Smith, who's getting in on the dollar. Appreciate it. All right, we're gonna leave it there for tonight, you guys. Thank you to everyone who hits the like and the share. And if you guys want to help fill in the gaps on Patreon, we have lost a lot of people since I started this podcast. If you ever thought about pledging $1 a month, now'd be a great time. Links in this description. Thank you to everyone who does, and for all the people who've supported it for several years now. Thank you. Oh, hold on. We got one more call. Somebody's staying up late on the East Coast. What's up, Night Owl?
I wanted to ask you about something later on, not on the show.
You can call me back in a minute. I'm about to end the stream. Did you want to call me back once I end the stream?
Can it be tomorrow?
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, give me a call tomorrow. Yeah, give me a call tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, take care, man. Okay. All right, we'll leave it there for now, you guys. Thanks again, and until next time.